Hey everybody, Derek here from OKS Hunter. Thought I'd take you along here on hopefully a series of walks, of scouting trips out on some public ground here in southern Wisconsin. Kind of had an idea to put together a video series on just kind of the process of checking out some new public areas, and for those of you new to the kind of mobile hunting or public land hunting where you're not just hanging a stand and sitting the same spot over and over hoping for the deer to come in, but for the guys who really kind of want to learn how to get after it and actually hunt down deer, find sign, find a buck, and hunt them down. So that's the hope with this little video series that I'm going to be doing. I've got the GoPro today, and what I'm going to do is I'm on a piece of ground that I scouted one time last year. And it was actually in the summertime. It was horrible. Hot, wet, buggy. But I came in way from the north, and I brought 2 cameras with me that day, and I walked probably over a mile through some really nasty, wet, boggy area, some buckthorn stuff, and I came out to a spot after I crossed a creek that I thought looked really good. It had some great historic rubs in it, and the terrain just looked nice. It got me excited. So I actually hung my 2 cameras in July, and the plan was just to leave them till right before season. And I really didn't expect much. The cameras that I hung were basically based off of old buck sign. And in the summer, old buck sign back in the thick stuff is really not very conducive to good summer pictures, usually. But when I went and got my cameras, I had some huge bucks on it, including one really nice, giant, typical 10-point. And another real wide 10-point, and a handful of other nice deer, so I couldn't believe it. Kind of shocked me for getting pictures that time of year. I ended up swinging some cameras around, got some videos on a mock scrape of the big guy, and that's where I am today. I haven't really scouted it like with the intent of actual just walking and learning since then. So I've only really scouted it one time. Every time since I got those pictures, I've had my bow in hand and I've been hunting. So I would scout my way in, basically check out the maps, come up with where I think those deer could be for the day, and I would scout my way in and hunt. And sometimes I got a hunt in. I passed a really nice 2.5-year-old 8-pointer just north of here a little ways, hunting what I thought was one of the bigger bucks bedding areas. But ooh, that's a nice track. She's melted out a little bit. There you can see. There's my boot. That's a pretty good track there. A little bed, a little deer bed right there. But anyway, before I get preoccupied with deer sign here, the idea is now I'm going to come in and I have one goal in mind, and that is to specifically scout for one of the 3 or 4 really big bucks that I had on camera that I know are in here. This is a fairly decent sized area as far as acres go. It's a good size, but man, it gets a lot of pressure from bow hunters and a ton from bird, and as I'm learning today, coyote and coon hunters. There's guys with a bunch of dogs running in here. So it gets pressured, but the cover is such that I'm not worried about it. These bucks are going to be here all year. I know it, because it's just really, really hard to hunt stuff. It's thick, it's nice. It's perfect for them. So although there's tons of pressure, I know these deer are living here. I had pictures of them from early season all the way to November when I pulled my cameras, and I just know that this is the kind of spots these bucks like to hang out. Check this out. There's a bed here. I'm just kind of walking and talking, doing my interview. Bed there, whole bunch of old rubs. Big, tall, old rub over here. And then we got some fresh rubs from this year. Cool. That tree's all nicked up. This guy is all scarred up. Oh yeah. Scarred up here. That one's ripped up, some high tine marks. Here's another rub. Broke off. Nice nice and shaggy. Bunch of old rubs right here. So already I'm getting into some sign that I've not seen before. I've never been this side of the property. I've really been honing in basically where my cameras were. Today the goal is to get around, check out all the areas that I haven't seen yet. And this spot that I'm in right now that I decided to start with is, of course, the spot closest to the car. I dived off the main trail right away, and just there's a bunch of hiking trails that come back in, and the immediate go-to was get off the trail and just start looking at these little pockets of timber between where all the trails are, because a lot of times I think these big deer hide in that kind of stuff. So right here I'm on a nice transition, actually. Some thick buckthorn and berry bushes here, and then it transitions into this more open stuff, and that's right where all these rubs are. So this might be kind of a cool little hub. I would guess this is nighttime sign, but this kind of spot right here would be an awesome spot to hang a camera. It's not far from where you park. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that far, and I feel like I don't have to bump through any of the real good cover to get here to check a camera. And with that amount of rubs, new ones and old ones, you're gonna get some deer. Like whatever bucks are in the area, beginning of October through October are probably gonna come hit those big rubs. There's a big track here. This one's snowed in, but I'm calling it big just because I can see dew claws there, and the spacing is a really good stride. So, wasn't really expecting to show any deer sign on this video clip. I was just gonna do a little interview and kind of frame the outline of what we're gonna go for here. A little video series where I'm just gonna kind of explain what I'm seeing, what I'm looking for, and what I'm doing. So that's the plan. Hopefully it's helpful to at least somebody, wherever you are in your stage of hunting. I like to really spend some time scouting, and I like to hunt, a little bit older age class bucks. Don't get me wrong. Love shooting me some nice 8s and 6-pointers here and there. But the point of this little video series is just to take you along with me as I'm scouting an area that I know holds big deer, and how I'm gonna try to figure them out and put myself in a position next season to get a chance at one. So I'll get some GoPro footage today. Anything I find, I'm just gonna talk about it all. So that rub cluster right there is a pretty cool find to start with. Would love to bump into a shed today, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is to cover ground and learn it today. So that's the plan. All right, stick with me, guys. I'm gonna see if I can find some more stuff. All right, guys, so first spot here that I run into that is pretty interesting, that I'm gonna spend a little time dissecting. I just took some GoPro footage. I'm right on the back side of this little tiny thicket. Maybe you can see it through there, some grass. There's a little low spot, pretty wet, low and wet, nice little edge. And there is a ton of rubs. This one's just nicked up a little bit. Little bitty rub there. But along that edge of the wet spot, there's like a side hill. A slightly steeper ridge that comes down to that wet spot. I'm on the other side of the wet spot right now. I just took a video. There's a massive rub line. Massive rub line on the opposite side of that wet area. And why I believe that is this is a little overlook spot. People kind of come this way, and then people come to the other side. But that ridge right there kind of runs north-south. And with the predominant wind, if they cruise that low edge there, they'll be able to smell anything from on this side where there's kind of more open stuff. They're secluded by that hill and out of sight. And obviously, bucks are moving through there for some reason. Point A, point B, I don't know that there's a good buck bedding area right close in there. Just thinking of where we're at here. But because I don't know, that's my job right now. I got to figure out where those rubs are coming and going to. There's not like an overabundance of real big ones. It's just a lot of trees past and present, that are kind of worked up, nicked. You can tell something was getting a little fired up there, but it's not like what you would see if you were right in a real mature deer's bedding area. These are probably some 2.5-year-olds and definitely some 3-year-olds, just by the looks of the rubs and height of them. But there's a few good ones mixed in there. So my job right now is to follow that little ridge line. I came to the other side here to see if there's a little point that comes off on the map over here. So I came over to this side to see if anything's coming across this point, kind of working perpendicular to that ridge, which I'm sure there's some deer that do that. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. But then I'm gonna go back and follow that ridge and follow that rub line and see where it's leading. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. It's good to see that kind of sign, but without a real good thick area right by it, that tells you got to keep looking. They're moving through there for a reason, but we got to figure out where they're coming from. So we've got another edge up here on the top. Looks like a grass edge, a little thicker. I'm gonna go hit that, and then I'm gonna loop around back to that big rub line. So, hey, it's good to find that sign right away. I mean, this area is good. Just gotta figure it out. Spend some time looking. All right, so little update. That rub line ended up just leading along the side hill. Good sign the whole way, but it kind of led up towards some hiking trails, or at least, more commonly used people access. And then what looked like out to private ag fields. So I think a lot of that sign that I saw was probably being made a little after dark, and it seemed to be coming uphill from the bottom. And the big bottom here is where I had my cameras and where I was set up trying to hunt those bucks. So I think it's just some of the sign those bucks I was getting were leaving as they were coming out of that bottom and going up toward what I assume is ag on the private. So what I ended up doing is kind of splitting off of there and hitting a few small pockets of brushy, grassy stuff just to see if there was any sign around them, if there was any pockets that maybe a buck was hiding out in. But I didn't see too much, some little tiny rubs, but that was it. But there's a trail right here. It's got some small rubs. We just popped out to this transition, just came through some woods, and now there's some willow brush. Rub. So this looks like probably early season. Whenever I see the willows and the alders that are all ripped up real small, like that. Like that one there. And like all these. This typically is early season, especially because we're kind of close to some private that on the map looks like it has some ag on it. But what that looks like is probably a buck bedding in this grassy stuff back here, I would guess, and then just working this little transition up to the ag. So might as well follow this. I'm actually cutting way around. I'm gonna make a big loop to kind of scout into the backside of where I was hunting. And one day I dragged Eric out here and I set him up in a spot kind of in the beginning where I'd seen that good 2-year-old 8-pointer. And then I scouted my way in and ended up not finding much. So I just kept going and going and going. Kind of use it as a scouting mission. And I got way in the back and there's some little pockets and islands. So that's where I'm gonna head now. I'm gonna try not to walk the stuff that I've been to too much. Right now, it's still winter. It's like February 4th or 5th. I'm gonna wait a little bit because it's a lot of little high ground stuff. And I'd like to see where scrapes are. So right now I'm just gonna kind of cover ground and get to some new territory, especially since things are froze up. It'll make going across the marsh much easier rather than waiting and trying to scout the marsh spots once the thaw out starts. So that's the plan. I'm just hightailing it across. Anything that looks interesting, and by interesting I mean pockets of brush, little high ground spots, anything that I can see, I'm going to check. What I'm looking for in the thick stuff, because the thick stuff can be really hard to see, right? Hard to scout, because you're seeing such a limited amount. But really, if you get to an edge, a point, the outer skirting of an island, and you don't see rubs, keep moving. Keep moving. Because if there's a big buck in there using that, or a buck of any kind, and it's his little hideout, he is going to be making rubs outside of it. That's his safety spot. There's a rub from this last year. Looked like it was made very early in the season. Very gray. All the red has kind of left. The orangey red, it's all very brown. That was made earlier in the year. There's one from last year. But that's kind of how I'm gauging while I'm speed scouting. What to look at is the consistency of rubs and what the general terrain is. Trying to pick little pockets personally here, because a lot of this is monotonous. I mean, there's brush everywhere. So there's security cover all over. You guys can see I'm walking through this. It's nice and thick. And then there's areas of grass and red brush. But the bucks aren't gonna like all of them. What they're gonna like is the one that gives them the most security away from people. So I'm looking for these little isolated pockets. You can see this one was made later in the season for sure. It is a different kind of tree, but it's got way more orange. So anybody who's ever trying to age a rub, the brighter the color, typically the later in the season it was made. Meaning later October, November versus here in Wisconsin, September. Our season opens in September, so we can get on some of the first rubs of the year. But by the time November rolls around, even those rubs are starting to look grayed out, a little brown, old. So you can really tell. Here's an old one, another good example. So we just had that fresh one. Now here's a real old one. This was made early season last year, so it's still from last year. Still fresh sign from last year. But you can just see there's no color. The bark is actually almost has like little mold spots, kind of brown and yellow. So that's one way to look at it. Lots of old rubs through here. Let's see here, some of these popples been rubbed in the years past. But oh, another one. But what you guys see me walking in this video and right now is the kind of stuff that I'm always in. I'm not walking through the hardwoods very much. I'm down in the thick stuff, and I'm just looking for, I mean, the bucks will tell you where to go. Just follow their rub lines. And this kind of stuff, you guys can see it's all thick. This is not only a runway, a trail, but for the most part, it's open, very open, about head level. You'll find some, you guys can see how this is just small. That's from the deer browsing, but also in the real thick stuff, the big bucks, that brush is gonna break from their antlers pushing through. They'll knock stuff out of the way and break these branches. And you'll be able to tell. Doe trails be very narrow, hard to walk through, hard for you to walk through. And a buck's trail will be bigger. You'll have rubs on it, but you'll also have, open space for their headgear to go through. So, all right, I'm gonna keep, ooh, that was fun. Luckily I got on my waterproof hikers and some gaiters today. But little wet spot here. Also a great spot to note are these little wet spots. If it's a dry year and you can figure out where there's some little low areas in monotonous thickets like this, deer need water more than they need food. Here's the little wet slough here. Deer need water more than they need food. Rub, 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 rubs. That track's a little melted out, but that doesn't look half bad. Another rub here. These deer are gonna be where water is. If we got a dry fall, you can find a little creek or a little spring out in this monotonous thick stuff, man, that is going to be an awesome spot when those bucks start cruising and bumping does. They need to drink. This is like rub number 478 for the day. All right, so right here, area of interest. Just coming out of this little thick stuff, and I see an edge. Which is probably why these rubs are here. Let's go see what we got. All right. So I just came out of that brush, red brush mixture, willow. Now we're up onto a little high ground. Really hoping to spot a shed here. The snow is not too deep, so if it was one of the big guy sheds, I should be able to see it poking up for sure. But you see this little pocket right here. Then it looks like it opens up even more. But this little pocket, a lot of deer sign coming too. Decent rub over there, but nothing huge. I haven't seen anything huge as far as rub goes since I came out of that little side hill. All right, so you can see this transition works back. It works out that way, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna follow it. I'm gonna get in the thick stuff. I'll probably go check this pocket first. You guys can see this little pocket out in the open. I'm gonna go check that pocket, and then I'm gonna walk that transition, and I'm gonna make a big loop. There's treetops way back there. I'm gonna make a big loop around and see what I can turn up as far as hidden hidey holes from the last year. So here we go. This is how to become a better okayest hunter. We're not great. We're all just trying to get better. That's the key, right? Get that brain going, get the boots on the ground, get some exercise, and just do our best. A little nighttime bed here. Shed? No sheds? All right, catch you in a minute. All right, point of interest here. Last time I talked to you guys, I was in some brush way back there. You can see that tree line. I was on the other side of that, about 200 yards up, following that transition. I made it to that transition. It's kind of like an old dike. And I started walking the dike down, and I found a little chunk of Phragmites on the south side of that dike with some tracks going in it. So I always like to check those little pockets of Phragmites because the deer use it as a windbreak. And I got to looking at the map to see where I wanted to go next, because I want to hit that. There's a slightly taller pocket of trees there. So instead of walking that all the way down, which is a dike, which I thought other people probably walk, I saw on the map, there's a huge section of grass here. Lots and lots of grass. And the grass goes all the way down, surrounded by an ag field over there. That little white line is a cut cornfield. But out in the middle of this grass, there's a pocket of brush. I was like, hey, you know, that could be a secret big buck hiding hole. You got to walk a couple hundred yards off that dike to get to it. And there's no big trees. I was like, yeah, that might be an overlooked spot. And I got in here, and there were some rubs on the edge. The brush started over there. So I walked in, hit that edge, and then I saw a big rub line coming into it. And I followed it out. And there's a little low spot, a ditch down here. A low wet area that runs all the way along the back side. And that got me intrigued. Usually the deer like sitting by those little low spots, especially when they're wet. Came across a bed here. Nothing super special, but all of a sudden I hit this point. There's thick Phragmites here, right on the other side of the brush. Pocket of Phragmites. This bed got me interested. It's kind of like a cool little alleyway here. That wet area goes up that way. Edge right here. And got kind of interesting because right on the point, all of a sudden I started finding some rubs. So in here, there's a couple little rubs on the tree behind it. You can kind of see this natural little funnel right here. You can see my boot tracks. I just walked in here a couple seconds ago. But I got in here and I was like, yeah, it could be interesting. And then I started seeing a little bit more rubs. There's a rub right over there on that tree kind of high. And then there's an old rub with some tine marks on it here, right over here. Tine marks, rubbing on there. You can see that thick Phragmites is right there. And then right in the middle is a pretty good sized bed. He's got a nice big track here. Not quite 4-finger, but rubbing the bed here. Worked up a little bit. Another one over here. And you can kind of see if they bedded there, that wet area to his back. That wet area, well, somebody was in the bed, yeah. I booted him out, it looks like. So here's the escape route. That wet stuff to his back. He could hear anything coming from behind and probably smell. And then he's just got this, oh yeah, these willows got a bunch of rubs in them. I bet you when I get out to the edge here, I bet you there'll be some more rubs. But it looks like I just kicked a deer out of here. Maybe that buck that was bedded there. Oh yeah, here's some more rubs. Because then this kind of opens up, and I think it goes out to the egg field. So here's what we got. Fairly high rub there. Another one here from early season. Looks like you busted up a couple branches here. I don't think this is one of the huge ones, but it's a really cool overlooked spot here. So when some pressure starts ramping up, another rub over there, this could be a good spot to try. You can see here it completely opens up to just grass. Just grass. So I'm gonna keep working around the edge of it. I just wanted to share that kind of cool buck bed spot there. Super easy for him. I bet you he never really gets messed with out here, except maybe, this is a hard spot to get to from any access on the public. I mean, it just takes a little legwork. It's not hard. Just takes some legwork. But yeah, kind of a cool overlooked spot that looks like at least one buck was using. All right, on to find the big guy. I made a little loop to the south, and right now I'm on the edge of a little Phragmites. That little waterway is right on the other side, and it's like a wall of Phragmites that runs along this. And then right on the upside, so it's like 2 feet of elevation change probably, but there's a little high ground. There's a great big bed right there. Couple rubs in it, and a whole bunch of beds just on this little high spot up from the Phragmites. I just took some GoPro video, so I'm not going to go back over there. There's a really nice rub and a good rub line coming out there. So I'm glad I tried dipping into this spot here. So this is one that you would not probably pick out to go scout on a map because there's no big trees at all. It's just a little pocket of brush out in a big grassy area. But from what I can see, this is holding a pretty good number of deer just because of how close it is to some private ag ground. So it's a pain in the butt to get to. You gotta walk through some thick stuff, but really it's just far. That's the biggest advantage, is it's far and it doesn't look like much. And I think that's why the deer are stacked up in here. I found tons of beds, lots of rubs, nothing gigantic, but you gotta keep in mind, there's nothing gigantic to rub out here. There's no big trees. It's all small brushy stuff. So when you see tore up brush, a lot of people you naturally think, oh, you know, not small buck. But out here, there's nothing else to rub. So seeing a lot of small rubs is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's some tall ones, there's some shredded ones. So I think this is a great area to try hunting. Have to do it on the ground, but this would also be a great area to run a camera. So there's a little scrape area right over here. I took some GoPro video, and there's a giant licking branch that's all ripped up with a bunch of rubs by it. So all the deer seem like they kind of filter from here. That's that little waterway. There's another waterway over there. And they all kind of filter along the edges right through this spot. And then that one taller tree right there, there's a giant scrape underneath it. And then it goes out to the ag fields. So my thought is sneak in along the edge. You could stay 150 yards away from all this brush. Just walk the open grass, and I could run a camera on that edge without really getting in here and goofing stuff up. I think that'd be a really, really good call. And then you're gonna get, I would imagine you're gonna get good summer pictures here because it's so close to the fields. So if the farmer puts in something like beans, I mean, the deer are gonna be stacked up in here all summer because it's super close. Nobody's gonna be bugging them here at all in the summertime. So I think it's gonna be a really good spot. I'm still kind of poking around looking for sheds. You can see where the deer have been eating that horsetail stuff. So I'm still looking for sheds, but really the idea today is just cover ground. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna kind of check this area off the list. I got like 2 different locations pinned where I could set up on the ground, and I think I could have a good chance of seeing something. So yeah, now to go scout the areas that I planned on originally. So yeah, I'll show you guys what I find next. I am stopping for a break. Whew. I just came out of the big marshy area, and my legs are getting a little tired. Snow is good for walking. It started out this morning, it was still cold, and the snow was like really fluffy and light, and you just fly right through it. And as it's warming up today, it's getting up to like 34. It's getting a little bit packier. So now it's like good snowball weather. It's getting packier, so my legs and my hip flexors are getting tired. So I'm taking a little break. I've covered 3.56 miles in 2.5 hours. So I've been moving pretty decent. Trying to take videos when I could. I got that one antler, that one little shed, no other sheds. But I do have I'm probably just over halfway done. I'm still gonna do a little walking here. But my takeaway from the day so far is this. Scout where the sign is. So coming into this spot and knowing that this big buck, a couple big bucks were in here, my head immediately starts running, and it got me in trouble today. No, it didn't get me in trouble, I guess. It's good to check spots off the list, but I had all these little pockets that are way out, secluded, far away from stuff. And my thought was just that with the human pressure and bird hunters, that I was thinking this big deer was gonna be out secluded by himself. And what I've seen so far today is there's really not much sign out in the secluded spots. All the sign I saw was right up in the front, right in the beginning. So that's kind of my takeaway right now is don't get in your head. Don't scout with your brain too much. Scout with your eyes. Just follow what you see and trust that. So I am going to walk through another chunk of woods here. This is one that I've been in a little bit. And I'm going to imagine there's pretty good sign in there for right now for winter. But I'm going to kind of make my way back to the vehicle, work through this area, do a bit more scouting, and then head back. So I'm going to have my snack, my cheese and crackers. Definitely get a little bit of water here. Oh. And just relax and stretch the legs a bit before I get going. So here's to kicking back and having some cheese and crackers.